Hey, I'm Dr. Pilet, and I want to build on last week's topic, which was, what is emotional bonding? But today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give you a little bit of the biochemistry of the mind. I'm going to teach you a little bit about hormones. Last week we talked about subjective. Do you remember I talked about subjective? Subjective is the experience I have when I'm with a person. When I go out on my first date, I smell the fragrance of the perfume. I visually see how attractive the person is. I touch her, I get goosebumps. I subjectively experience my time with this person to such an extent that I'm euphoric. And for whatever it's worth, when you're first in your teens, those first dates, those first loves are sometimes the hardest one to live through because they hurt the worst. Because you bonded, you emotionally bonded to someone. The idea of the subjective experience builds into the human brain because the brain builds neural pathways based on that experience. That person, the situation of us being together, the hormones that were generated. You are a creature of God, and by design, you are going to find a mate. You're going to have children. It's something that comes. You have to think about it. It happens all by itself. Testosterone, estrogen, they're the hormones of the human brain that promote you to these experiences. You are attracted. You want to find someone. So from the subjective idea that I go out with someone and have a good time, and I do enough of these selected good times that I bond to them, is a fact of life. Unfortunately, a lot of people use those experiences to say, I'm in love. And they're trying to describe this feeling I have, but because in the absence of that person, I miss them. And they start to say things like, I'm in love. When actually, if you look at my definition of love, think about it. It's in one of my books, but it says, love is a process, not a destination. It's an assertive dedication to problem solve in developing an emotional relationship that we may stay together. See, love. We problem solve that we can keep together. That's love. But when a person says to me, I love her so much, and I say, well, how's it going? Well, got a restraining order. Can't see her. We got a problem, don't we? Because there's no problem solving. Your desire to problem solve in one hand might in fact be 100%, but if the other person chooses not to problem solve, you're bonded. But love, it's a combined effort. It's a collaborative effort. Love is a process, not a destination. I problem solve that we may collaboratively build a lifestyle together. Collaborative lifestyle, co-labor together, work together, lifestyle. Life is what God gave you. Style is how you lead it. If your lifestyle is singular and by yourself and your partner is not problem solving that we can collaboratively share a lifestyle together, that ain't love. Work through that. Because your self-talk has to reaffirm that you're off the path of life. The feelings that you're having are misperceptions because you're allowing yourself to get carried away in abstract thought. And now we're going to be talking about hormones. The reptilian brain is all about back here, the brain stem. A lizard has 100 eggs. Why? Because of 100 eggs, maybe 2 will make it. 2 will live. You ever hear the expression about eat your young? Lizards eat their young. The little baby lizard pops out the shell, mama will eat it for dinner. So, I got to get the hell out of this nest is one of the first things that a reptile might experience. But what you have to realize is as these reptiles experience life, the ones that survive become, if you will, ingrained in certain behaviors that become instinctual, and those instinctive behaviors get passed off to their generations. Primitive animals are instinctual. They know to go find food. They know to kill food. They know to eat food. But just as that lizard, when it sees a shadow and runs for cover, it survives. The one that didn't dies. They don't pass on the instincts. But as you all sit in this room and you look at me, you have thousands of years of ancestors that survived for you to be here. Each one of you in this room has thousands of years of ancestors that survived for you to be here. And as the human brain has developed, the brainstem, we all have a brainstem, and it's very primitive and very instinctual, but you also have something that's unique to being a Homo sapien or mammal, and that is the cerebral cortex. This part of your brain up here is the abstract mind. It's the mind that allows you to have intuition. I can put up here in a chart and explain to you how gases expand in a rifle barrel and that a projectile comes out of that barrel and is flying at 2,400 feet per second, and you have enough intuition to figure out, don't stand in front of a rifle barrel. You don't have to do it to learn it. You can perceive it by conscious thought, abstract thinking. That's what makes the human brain so cool. We can figure things out to a whole different level. The reptile that got eaten, that they're done. And the instincts don't get passed on. But we're Homo sapiens, we're mammals. We have a cerebral cortex. We have an ability to take information and, if you will, summarize it, condense it, put it together in a form that we can use it in other instances, because we are that higher level of a functioning animal. But we are driven by hormones. And today I'm going to talk about hormones and emotional bonding as sort of a carry-on to last week's topic. Because I'm going to give you some really cool information. Information about how your brain functions and how it affects relationships and how it affects your way of, in fact, designing your life by using the cerebral cortex. One thing we start off with very basic is that there's a key ingredient in your body that has to do with the way your mind works. A few weeks ago I talked about how you have 4 pounds of gray material, billions and billions and billions of neurons. And when you're born, they're all just a mass of cells that really aren't connected in any way. I'm going to take you forward because neurologists have figured out that when they take the human brain and they probe it, they find, wow, I put a probe right here and that's the forefinger, and I put a probe right here and that's the big toe. And as they touch parts of the brain, they find that parts of the brain are selective and specific to feelings in certain parts of the brain. Does that make sense to you? Sight, a certain part of the brain, is all about processing visual information. Speech, part of the brain, all about verbal information. Hearing, got that? But when you're born, you've just got this chunk of meat up here that has no neural pathways yet. You're not instinctual yet. You know, yeah, when you're hungry, you cry, so maybe you do have some instincts, right? But as you are watching the world around you, you're beginning to realize, oh my God, if I touch something hot, my fingers touch it hot, I see it, oh, it's a hot plate, I see a red hot plate, I touch it, I hear mom say, no! All those feedbacks come into the brain and a neural pathway is created. A neural pathway that put sight, hot plate, fingers touched it, no! All comes together and a neural pathway, a neural branch is created. What's interesting about this pathway is it becomes coated in myelin. Myelin is the coating, like if you think of electrical wiring, you have copper wire, if you coat it in plastic, now it's a superconductor. Myelin coats your neural pathways. And up until puberty, myelin is alive and well. As you are experiencing life and learning, oh, I hear a canary speak. I see the canary. That's what a canary is. A canary, bird, flies. You're developing branches, and myelin is coating all of those. So from birth, as you get towards teens, you're always creating neural pathways. Myelin is alive and well, probably into your teens, and it drops off dramatically. Now, what's interesting is if you're 8 years old and your dad brings you fishing, you've developed a neural pathway. Ah, open water. Oh, there is water. There's fish in the water. I can see the fish in the water. I can smell the salt. I can feel the breeze. I can see, oh, my dad's catching a fish. Wow, that feels good. You create a neural pathway. That neural pathway is reinforced, coated with myelin, and you carry it for the rest of your life. Now, what's interesting about this, as a very young age, as you get into your teens, you're robust in creating new neural pathways. But as you get older, because myelin is no longer produced, a lot of the entrained neural pathways are there for life, and people find themselves resistant to try new things. You hear people say things like, same old, same old. You want to go do something? Let's go do something really different. Nah, I don't think so. They're not as excited. Their intuition doesn't kick in to say, let's try new things. You ever been bowling? Let's go bowling. A 25-year-old might say, I don't want to go bowling. A kid, yeah, let's go bowling. You're more open to new things. You can't wait to try something different. And we become entrenched, if you will, in patterns that become habits. Patterns that become habits. Last week's topic, you remember? A pattern, something you do repeatedly, becomes a habit. And when you look up by definition what a habit is a subconscious pattern that has been entrenched into you in such a way that it's a behavioral habit. Look it up. But now when we talk about myelin and branches and the idea that your brain quits making all these new neural pathways, this is so important. It's so important because a lot of times when you meet that first love, the fragrance of her perfume, the sight of her dress, the idea that you cognitively see her as beautiful and it's your first experience, we hear people all the time say the first love is the hardest to get through because it's a broken heart that lasts forever. That idea that you can become, if you will, entrained with a memory of a past broken relationship, and it might affect you in the future as now you are a little bit hesitant to try again. Why? Because the last one hurt so much. And the idea that relationships were building neural pathways. Now, back to the idea of fishing. You built a neural pathway that's a branch that has to do with fishing. For the rest of your life, you will add to that neural pathway, but you don't create a new one. It's like a branch to a tree. You add leaves to it, but you don't build a new branch. You follow that? You're flourishing as you take that neural pathway and expand it, but you don't create new neural pathways. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. All right. So now we're going to start getting into some heavy stuff. You already know about myelin, and it promotes neural pathways, and once they're in place, they stay forever. Now we're going to start talking about some good stuff and some bad stuff, if you will. You have positive hormones and you got negative hormones. Has anybody ever heard of cortisol? A lot of time we call it the stress hormone, cortisol. You know, reptiles don't have cortisol. If they do, I haven't read about it. But cortisol is the spread. It's the hormone that when you get in your body, you want to get rid of it. You want to get rid of it. It makes you feel bad. We call it the stress hormone. Got that? When your body is inundated with stress as a natural outcome by genetic design, your body wants to feel good. Positive and negative energy. When your body feels negative, it automatically wants to feel positive. Guess what? Cortisol, the stress hormone, is also compensated by positive hormones that can relieve the negative energy. It can relieve the negative energy. Remember I talked about patterns? You know what? I'm sitting in traffic. It's raining. I'm late to get home. I'm tired. I'm so angry. Why? Because I'm late for dinner. My wife is mad at me. The kids are mad at me. I walk into I'm filled with cortisol, filled with negative energy. Your body wants to get rid of it. Your body wants to find ways to get rid of the negative energy. And guess what? There are some hormones out there that provide you positive energy. We're going to talk about several of them right now. I'm going to start off with an easy one. Serotonin. Serotonin is a positive, if you will, feel-good neurotransmitter. And what we know about serotonin, serotonin brings you that competitive edge. It makes you want to compete and be counted. It makes you want to rise your head above the crowd and be recognized. If you're out and you're on a date or you're with a group of your buddies, if you will, and you see someone that's really attractive, she's hot, she looks sharp, you begin to think, wow, I want to meet her. I want to say hi. I want to say something that brings me into this conversation. Maybe I can get her phone number. Serotonin, the competitive edge. When you get a job and you're in a workforce with everybody else who's just bland and you want to step ahead because I want to be the boss. When you go into real estate because you want to buy your own little real estate agency so you can make your own name and place in life, that's serotonin. I want to be counted. I want to make a difference. I want to be recognized. It's the competitive hormone. When cortisol hits and you're inundated with, in fact, stress, well, what kind of stress would that be? Well, you go to work and your boss is yelling and screaming at everybody because the production was down, because nobody made their quotas. When the weather's so bad that the traffic's in gridlock and you want to get home and you can't get home. The abstract mind, if you will, the cerebral cortex, has a way of looking at things that can produce cortisol,